Good morning, SUNYK Korea. This is the review of round two. So before I start with reviewing the results for everyone, let's look at my practice game. So you guys are in the live competition, but this is my way of giving some hints about how to move forward. So in round two, what I did was when I redesigned my cars, I made sure that I was able to increase my gross profit margins for each of the cars, moving from at least hopefully from 3 to 5 percentage points higher on each of the cars. And I'm struggling on some cars because the customer expectation ranges are going up faster than the prices are going up. So it's making it hard for me to increase my gross profits. On the marketing page, I've been keen to watch the increase of the investment range for advertising, and I see that last time I did not advertise efficiently, so now I moved in to cover more areas of advertising to make my advertising more effective. And then in production, I tried to only buy production plants when I had a high capacity utilization, meaning when I had enough cars to fill the plant to be built. And I made sure that I doubled my operational investments to help maintain my profit margins. Now looking at the bottom here, I see I have a surplus of 29 million. So I'm going to go in, I can actually go back to production and I can buy some more operational investments. And I know I'm struggling a lot with the luxury car to have a high profit margin. That's getting harder. So now my surplus is only 20 million and I'm going to go and retire some debt. So I'm going to pay back some long-term, short-term debt, and I'm going to buy back some stock. Now I want to make sure that I have at least 10 million in my surplus deficit in case I have cars I forecasted but were not able to sell. So I'm going to complete the round, and then we're going to review the results. So now I'm at the same point you are in the team simulation where you're working in year three, round three. And the first thing you should do is come to the overview and see how you did. So I made 584 points. For rounds 2 through 6, earning over 400 points is considered good. So I'm well over 400 points. And if I look at my information here, I was able to increase my gross profit margins 5%, which is what I'm shooting for each round, to go up at least 5%. And my operational margins only went up 3%. That's because I spent a lot more money in marketing. My net profit margin went up 3%, and you can see my quick ratio, debt ratio improved as I paid down some debt. My sales went up by 40%. Now my equity was negative, so I lost some points in equity. And that happens when you pay down debt. Equity gets bigger, so it's harder to have the same return on the equity as the equity gets bigger and the debt gets smaller. But I'm willing to sacrifice some profits, some points here. My earnings per share went up by 55%. Return on assets went up 19%. Market capitalization, with the value of the stock price, went up 100%. My book value is up, and my forecasts were more accurate. So I earned some points there, except for economy. Economy was less accurate by a little bit, and I had operational investments. So I doubled my operation investments, got 100 points there, and I wound up with a surplus. Not the 10 million that I had, but 5 million because there were some cars unsold. So at this point, I would look at my assessment to get some ideas of how I'm doing. It looks like I'm doing very well in most categories on my assessment. And so, except my total asset turnover, which I realized I was taking on more assets, and it's going to be hard to really improve this towards the end of the game. So the assets, as far as total asset turnover, which is looking at assets to sales, and return on assets, which is looking at assets to profits, as I buy more production plants and invest in the company, it's going to be hard to really improve this. But that's a sacrifice I'm willing to make, because when I invest in these operations and production plants, I can greatly expand my sales and profits. So I can't be above average in every ratio, every round. Sometimes some ratios have to be sacrificed to improve in other ratios. Okay, my operational investments are a little bit average, as well as my cash management because of my low surplus. Overall point-wise, I have 1,400 points, which is good for 2 rounds, which is excellent. Going into charts, looking at my performance chart, the one chart I'm really interested in is this one. So I could see that my advertising was more effective. I generated more demand than my production, especially for truck. So there's a number of cars that I gave up, about 200 cars for sedan, truck, and luxury, that I wasn't able to meet the demand, and that extra demand went to the competition. So only economy class did I fully meet the demand of the vehicle. So I have to keep that in mind when I work on next round. So in the industry, I could look at how the other teams outperform me in certain areas, get some ideas. My financials are backed up, and now I'm back into round 3. So in round 3 again, when I try to build the car, I notice the expectations are higher, the sales price is a little higher. So when I rebuild the vehicle, I'm going to try to hopefully make a vehicle that is going to have a higher operating profit margin, which I only have a tiny, about 1%. So I'm going to have to work harder on increasing my operational investments to make sure I can get to those 5 percentage points. But I have 4 cars to work with, so hoping maybe some of the other cars will be able to surpass last year's gross profit percentages. Then I'll go into marketing, production, and finance again, and rerun the round. But really, most of it starts here. If I'm not accurate with my forecast, or if I'm not increasing my gross profit margin here, then the rest of my decisions are going to be difficult to help improve my overall score in the simulation. So as I build my car, sometimes I like to pick some lower information here and see where I can kind of get to my profit margin. So here, 2 points, and again, I'm going to tweak that some more. And as I go through the simulation, I'm just going to kind of start with a base here, hopefully improving over last round's base to make my car keep up with the industry. And an important thing to do as I'm going through, so here my cars are definitely getting higher characteristics, but it's being difficult to keep making my profit margins. Okay, so I'm going to have to go and probably massage these numbers more and more as I move through. Now, if I look at the student user guide, remember, this is what helps you with your forecasts. So if I go down to the forecasting area, I'm in round 3, so 34, 43, 25, and 3. So if I go back up to sales, I see that this I could probably sell 3,400 vehicles. On the sedan, looks like 43. So 43 on that. And then the truck is about 26, and 3,000 for. So I'm going to bring this down a little bit and bring this up. So I'm just using the student user guide to help better focus my forecasting. And the student user guide does a good explanation of advertising media to see what's most effective. It looks like television is the most effective, followed by newspapers, so I should put most of my money there. And then just kind of reviewing the how the operational research development helps to improve the cost effectiveness of my building of the vehicles. So as I continue through the simulation, I won't show you my results until next round, but I'm going to keep working on this as you are going to work in the team competition. So if we go back to the team competition, let's see how the class did. Okay, so as net profit margins, we could see in last round, all the teams did better this round than last round. So if you look at this team, they went up a tremendous amount. So most teams surpassed 65 million in their profits, with a couple teams going above 75 million in their net profits, which was excellent. So all teams improved in their net profits. Now, as far as points, now we see points in round 1. Round 1 is the easiest round to make points because you're competing against a management team that failed. So all their results were not that high. So your year over year, which your points are calculated from, are naturally going to be much higher in round 1. Now in round 2 through 6, you're trying to get points above 400, and most teams here did just that. So there was only one team that was below 400. So if you're above 400 each round, you're going to do well for the simulation. So if we look at the stock price, we see that this team YSL is still number 1 place in stock price, but all the teams are pretty close because we have a top of 33 and a bottom of 24. So everybody's within this $10 range of stock price. What makes stock price go up? Profits. If you're increasing your profits and your earnings per share and your gross profit margins, investors like that, and stock prices go up. So profits are the number 1 motivator for increasing stock price. Sales per team, we have between 357 million to 288 million. So again, we have a range of sales here. Most companies are still in alignment with where they were last round, but there are a couple companies that switch places as far as top sales. And you know, sales are great as long as you can translate them into profits. So earnings per share, we see that just about all teams increased the earnings per share. The last place team has moved into the second to last. And we have this team here that moved up from 4th place into 5th or 6th place. And then we have still our market leaders. We have a new number 2 position and a new number 3 position in earnings per share, which is great. Let's look at the leaderboard. So here in the leaderboard, with this bigger Okay, so here in the leaderboard, current round points. Again, everybody except for one team was above 400, which is great. We want to try to shoot for that 425 points every round to get the, an average of 425 points to make sure you get a full grade in the simulation. Gross profit margins. So only one team. Now remember, in round 1, you started off at 40%. So if you're still at 40%, you've made no progress in improving your profit margins, which investors hate. And that's a reason for why the teams that are below 45% haven't really gained that much in points or in their rankings. Most teams are in the 50% range, which is great. Now you want to be more towards the 60% range while you're moving into the 3rd year. So hopefully you can move up your gross profit percentage at least 5 percentage points, maybe 10, to kind of get into that 60 percentile area would be optimal. But even if you just go from 52 to 57, that's still very high. And we see these teams are all in the 90th percentile, which means this class is doing very well overall in the simulation, better than most classes. Stock price as well. We see a number of teams in the 90 percentile doing better than 90% of the past 5,000 teams that have played the simulation. So everyone's, in the class, as long as you're above the 70 percentile, you're doing very well, beating 70% of the past 5,000 teams across the world, which is, quite an accomplishment. So return on equity is high. And total points. So look at total points. You need 2,500 points to get the full grade in this class. So most teams are more than halfway there by the 2nd round. So you have 4 rounds to get to another, 1,000, 1,200 points. So most teams are well ahead on schedule. And you can tell by the percentage here, all teams are above 75% on total points. So you're doing very well. And you have 4 rounds to get to 2,500. And all the teams are on track and doing well. And most teams are halfway there or more than halfway there to the final 2,500 points. So as far as points go, everybody's on track and doing well. So the operational profit margins, the way to improve this is more efficiency and marketing. Something I have to work on. I over-marketed, I overspent, and it hurt my operating profit margins. So if I grow my gross profit margins by 5%, my goal is to grow my operational and net profits by 5%. Earnings per share, companies are doing very well in earnings per share as well. And return on assets, companies are doing well, but this is a hard one to do moving forward because round 3 is a big buying phase as far as buying more factories and buying more operational investments. So return on assets and total assets, TAT, will be hard to maintain strong improvements In net profit margin, you can maintain this by making sure that you pay back debt as you start making more profits as a team. Revenues, of course, make sure you look at the student user guide to have a better clue on how to forecast the revenues. And okay, so that's where we left off. So moving into round 3, remember that you want to improve your gross profit percentages, you want to improve your sales, and you want to be more effective and efficient in your production and in your marketing. Okay, I wish you the best luck for the next round, and I will talk to you soon.